Welcome back to On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers, and my special guests, Angela Sherman and Simon Stone. Before we go any further, I should say that we can't give out any legal advice on this programme. If you need legal advice on this subject, you have to consult a solicitor. Having said that, I'm going to go straight to the text here. We've got one from Linda in Birmingham, who says, "This is what I've been saying for years. I am a nurse. It's all about money." Oh, it's jumped up. "The NHS has little to do with care now." Is that your experience?
I would agree. Yeah, there's very little care in health or social care. There are some good people in health and social care, but the whole system does not care.
Yeah, well, Margaret from Bedford says, "I really admire Angela and Simon's enduring commitment. It will be a great source of encouragement for those in a similar situation." And, you know, we hope that we can be encouraging for people in a similar situation. So, you had a victory.
I did.
With your mother on the, what, fourth or fifth attempt?
Yep, and they agreed to refund most of her care fees.
Why not all?
They decided that before April 06 she actually didn't qualify, and at that point I just did not want to go back and fight that one.
But why did they say? What was the reason
they
gave?
said that before then her needs were social needs. So they were needs that needed to be means tested.
She had Parkinson's disease for 25... I don't have to tell you this, you know, of course, for 25 years. She'd had 3 strokes over a period before she went into the nursing home, yes? And she had dementia before she went into the nursing home, am I right?
And it was gradually getting worse.
It was gradually getting worse. So it was a lie, wasn't it, when they said that she didn't need to be nursed?
Yes, I felt she should have had all her fees repaid. You have to make a decision about where you put your energy. And at that point, I was also starting to fight for my dad.
Well, we'll get on to him, but let's talk about your mother a bit more, because I'm interested. I mean, how did you feel about this? How did you feel about the NHS?
I was absolutely elated to receive the letter. It was a very emotional moment. I remember sitting on the stairs reading it, crying my eyes out with relief, exhaustion, anger, rage. The rage that had actually kept me going, fighting, was a useful rage, but it was also a very damaging rage if you let it get out of hand. But I was so angry about the whole thing, and but I was absolutely delighted that the panel had agreed to refund. You know, I felt it was some justice for Mum, and you know, it was something, and it was a good victory.
Did they pay your legal costs?
No.
Did they pay any costs for your time? You must have given up time for your work.
The money that they repay is purely for the person who has had the care.
So they let you fight and fight and fight and spend a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of stress, and then you win eventually through a combination of hard work and perhaps a little bit of luck. And but even then, it's like a kind of, you know, it's a rather grudging victory, isn't it?
The NHS says that in the event of something like this, they will return the person to their financial position before it happened. Well, that's total rubbish, because you cannot, you know, claw back investments that you've cashed in. You cannot, if you've sold your house, you can't unsell your house. You cannot, you know, put that person back to the same position. And if I were to claim my costs, I would have to litigate. And at that point, it just wasn't in my...
What are the implications of that? I mean, Simon, if you were to go to law in that sense and litigate, what are the implications?
The implications are horrid, because it takes, again, an enormous amount of time. It takes cash, unless you're going to find a lawyer who can do it on a no-win, no-fee basis. And there are some that would do it. You've also got to make sure you're filtering out the lawyers so you get to those who are very capable in this area. Of course, there are lots of firms of lawyers not necessarily able to pursue a case of this type. So you've got to find the right people at the right price, and then still, if you can't get a no-win, no-fee, you've got to find the money to do it.
But even if you've got a no-win, no-fee, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is it not the case that if you lose your case, all the costs of the NHS, who no doubt hire the most expensive barristers and lawyers, fall on your lap?
Yes.
And even if you're on a no-win, no-fee with your lawyer, with your firm of lawyers, you might have to sell your own house to pay for the fat cat lawyers, excuse me for saying that, Simon, of the NHS.
It's the cat bit that got me there, really. I think that most of these firms will run an insurance scheme which will help in those instances. And anybody who would embark upon litigation without a fallback is foolish.
Okay, but it is still a very hazardous course. When we spoke about this earlier, you did say to me that in order to pursue the law in this sense, you either have to be very poor or very rich.
Or very rich,
But if you're
yes.
somewhere in the middle,
As most people are.
as most people are, it's not a wise course of action.
It's very difficult. I mean, my job, I think, as a lawyer is to keep people out of court. In this case with Angela, because I'm not a litigation lawyer, I needed to have the support of a firm that would be there if we needed to go to that next step. And in fact, I was speaking with them recently, an excellent firm of lawyers in Cardiff, who are pioneering a way forward with these sorts of cases. They've got 700 cases currently that they're dealing with, and they've recovered 4.5 million already. It's a tremendous unit, and they're working very hard for people there. And they were there going to be backing us up if we needed to go that next step.
And okay, we're going to get to that, obviously, because we're going to get to your father. I'm just going to read another text here. This is a chap called Brian from Maesteg. I imagine that's probably somewhere in Wales.
Yes.
Can the NHS afford to fulfil their obligations on this matter? I mean, do you have an opinion? Do you know? Either of you?
Well, there are about 420,000 people in care homes.
In the UK?
In the UK.
Or is this Wales? Is this England and Wales?
We're talking here mainly England, because the system in Wales is slightly different.
And in Scotland it's very different, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
So there are 420,000 where?
In the UK.
In the whole of the UK?
At the moment, there are about 30,000 people receiving the kind of funding I fought for. That's a small percentage of all those people in care homes.
Yes.
If we assume that, I think it's about 60% of people in care homes have dementia. So if we look at that kind of figure, and if, suppose, all those people, that 60%, were to have funding in this way, that's a huge amount of money. I know, I doubt if the NHS can afford it, but there must be a more transparent way of doing this.
Or they have to tell the truth. They have to say, sorry, we're not going to look after you. Perhaps.
Perhaps. But elderly, in my view, elderly people have been utterly betrayed because they were sold a line that their taxes, all their lives, would pay for the NHS, which would be there for them. They've paid the most into it, and now they're just left separated as a separate part of society that doesn't need the care that everyone else gets.
I think if we were to look at this properly, the NHS system simply doesn't have enough money to do what it needs to do, or what we expect of the NHS to do.
Yeah.
We need to put far more into the system than that. But as you can imagine, we've got a political level. The NHS is good, it's there to care for us, it's there to promote health. And then we've got the grey suit brigade, which are there to say, well, how can we make sure we don't leak out too much money here? And then you've got the people at the bottom who are trying to make the assessments.
But there's also the care homes. I mean, Paul in Warrington's text again. He said, care in these homes is substandard, charges from £350 per week plus. My wife used to work in one, and so I dare say he knows. I mean, what was your experience of the care home that your parents were in?
You never know what a care home will be like till someone's there. The one that my parents are in is no worse, no better than others. It's probably on.
You can't really say though, can you? I mean, they might be watching.
I mean, well, I could be. I mean, it's fine. The people there are nice. The people are good. It's the system that is the problem. You know, the staff are great. They're lovely people. It's the whole system, the whole way that we treat elderly people that's the problem.